Secondly, someone tested the acceleration of this car and felt that its acceleration performance didn't quite match its claimed horsepower. So how much horsepower is there at the wheels? Isn't this our traditional business? The Z9GT has two versions, plug-in hybrid and pure electric. The plug-in hybrid has a small battery. The pure electric has a large battery. As we all know, in terms of discharge capacity, a small battery is definitely not as comfortable as a large battery. So since we're going to test, let's max out all the conditions. We rented a pure electric Z9GT Pro version for a 5-figure sum. The nameplate states an unparalleled 710 kilowatts of power, which translates to about 9066 horsepower. So how much horsepower is left at the wheels? Before the actual test, let's take a look at the chassis, brothers. This is not a sales pitch, the chassis of the Z9GT. After seeing it, there are only two words remaining. The first chassis, everyone knows what it was like. It was considered a kind of Arcalia seed, but this Z9GT's chassis, once you remove the guard plate, just look one look and you'll be speechless. Let me show you what aluminum is like. It's free. There's a little trick to looking at the chassis. It's to look at the content of this white color. Our tester, Mr. Cheng, just drips a little, and you can see the entire front subframe is almost all white. White means it's aluminum. For example, this subframe uses aluminum-assisted structure, including many support brackets. Also an aluminum structure. It won't stick. The front suspension is a double-wishbone structure. Both the lower and upper control arms are aluminum, and the lower control arm is a traditional double-wishbone form. Not using that kind of joint form, the front anti-collision beam, main anti-collision beam, and auxiliary anti-collision beam are all aluminum. And the energy-absorbing box of the main anti-collision beam is about the size of the lunchbox from my university cafeteria. It's really huge. I've never seen such a big energy-absorbing box. Then let's look at the parameters of its front motor. The front motor voltage is 450 volts. Peak power is 230 kilowatts. Rated power is 75 kilowatts. The front is an asynchronous motor. If it's the plug-in hybrid version, the front will be equipped with a synchronous motor. Then you can see the way its subframe connects to the body. It uses a soft connection to further filter out ground vibrations. Looking further back, it has designed two small directions. They protrude from the battery area, assuming if something comes in, something big, something hard, comes in these two small anti-collision beams in the front can play a protective role. It's very detailed. Then let's go to the back. Some cars. The car manufacturing is like a tiger's head and a snake's tail. The front is all white, all aluminum, but the back is not. The back is not, but this car, I'll show you from the very back. The last anti-collision beam is still aluminum. The anti-collision beam and energy-absorbing box are all aluminum. Then let's look at the rear subframe. Let's try to stick it. It won't stick. Unparalleled, it's the same aluminum-assisted method as the front. A full aluminum subframe, the way the rear subframe connects to the body is the same as the front subframe. Also a soft connection to further filter out ground vibrations. From this we can see the efforts this car has made in none. In addition, on the front and rear chassis guard plates. Inside we can also see the coverage of sound insulation and vibration damping foam. Also, this time we got a version without air suspension. I've also disassembled a version with air suspension. Before that car, in addition to the crazy use of aluminum, can also give you a feeling that it can, in an area that's almost this size, for example, a one-handed effort put its air suspension pump, air suspension bladder, high-pressure bladder, including the entire rear suspension, all in one place. It's arranged very neatly and beautifully. It can be called industrial aesthetics. This aspect can also reflect the advantage of making everything yourself. The rear suspension, 5 links, all 5 links are aluminum. They won't stick. There's no so-called silver white metal coating. No, it's all aluminum. And brothers, this car doesn't make money selling for 300,000 yuan. Then we look at the entire motor layout from the bottom up. The back is one of the core components, a symmetrical dual motor. It's very friendly to offset, a symmetrical design on the left and right. The motor sits inside, and the motor controller also sits inside the left and right. Steering motors are also two, so it can achieve a compass turn, etc. That's all for the chassis part. What are we doing next? Strapping on the carbon. Okay. Let's take a look at the Z9's testing process. We tested 2 modes on the dyno, Sport and Race with ESP turned off in the car system. The power of Sport and Race modes will be cut off at a speed of a 1/10, but actually, from the horsepower curve of the race mode, we can see that this car's horsepower has already passed its peak at a speed of a 1/10. So here's the first conclusion, no big problem. The peak wheel horsepower of the Z9 in race mode is 660cc66 horsepower. This number is also quite extreme, 6 to the end. Compared to the claimed 9066 horsepower, the achievement rate is 69%, but the horsepower curve can't end at 110. Brothers are more interested in the later horsepower. So we simply gave the Z9's power a small surgery, shielding the wheel speed signal this way. Although it still cuts power in race mode, the sport mode successfully broke through the barrier. So the peak horsepower of this car, we look at this line, the horsepower trend, we look at this line, we can see intuitively that the wheel horsepower in sport mode is further reduced. The peak is 6021 horsepower. Appearing at a speed of 110, the speed corresponding to this peak is actually quite biased towards the later stage. The more biased towards the later stage, the more this car will have the confidence of a naturally aspirated engine. The more the power is biased towards the early stage, then that's what everyone might not like. The so-called electric rat. Early stage king, late stage king after passing the peak horsepower. The trend of the curve is also good. There's no sudden big drop. Before a speed of 160, there can still be more than 530 horsepower. At the wheels, I've listed the measured height and data of the Z9 in a table. The peak horsepower achievement rate can be calculated. Normally, the average horsepower achievement rate is not calculated as a percentage because it was measured in sport mode. So it is not calculated as a percentage. How to look at this data? If you had the expectation of 1000 horsepower, then looking at this number, there is indeed a bit of a gap. But just looking at the absolute value of this number on a mainline dyno, this kind of sad dyno, more than 600 horsepower at the wheels, this data is basically at a level that makes fuel cars below 1 million look up to it, feel the elegant acceleration of 1000 horsepower get. Turn on race mode, I guess, when this video goes online. It might be close to the new year. Let's find a song that fits the occasion. 1 foot on the brake, 1 foot on the accelerator. Wait for the next short section. 3, 2, there's a slight slip. Now it's already over 80. Already over 100. Under this orchestrated symphony, the G completed an elegant acceleration and immediately reached 400. Reached the line. Performance is close to 190. While although I was mentally prepared, this power is still much more intense than I imagined. Let's take a look at the results measured. Z9GT in race mode. 0-100 fastest is 3.64 seconds, 200 in 6.9 seconds, or 400 meters in 11.74 seconds. Top speed 191.46. This is the best result we've measured in the 21st acceleration test. Yes, you heard that right. It's the 21st time. I saw netizens say before that the decrease in battery power has a big impact on this car's acceleration, but I think it would be more accurate to change battery power to temperature. On the day of the test, the temperature in Beijing was around 0 degrees, and the battery was above 90% the first time. In race mode, the 0-100 acceleration result was only 6.46 seconds. After that, we kept retesting, and on the 7th time, the acceleration time dropped to 5.62 seconds. On the 14th time, the acceleration time dropped to 4.56 seconds. After 14 tests, the acceleration time decreased from more than 6 seconds to more than 5 seconds, and then to more than 4 seconds. But there is still a big gap compared to the official 3-second result after the 15th acceleration test. The battery was already below 80%, so we quickly recharged. We guessed that it was most likely this recharge that raised the temperature of the battery. The battery woke up, and the first time we tested 0-100, after recharging, it ran 3.85 seconds. After that, it ran a 0-100 time of 3.64 seconds. A few times it is possible that this lithium iron phosphate battery is very sensitive to low temperatures. So all Z9GT owners, after entering the movement, when overtaking and accelerating, it's better to leave some extra space because acceleration ability does indeed worsen as the temperature decreases if you reserve this overtaking space based on a 3-second power level. But if the car's power at that moment is at a 6-second level, there are still some safety hazards in addition. We also tested the 0-100 km times in sport mode and comfort mode, which were 4.12 seconds and 0.66 seconds respectively. The Z9GT 6016 is at the level of low 6 seconds. If compared to other cars with 800 or 900 horsepower, the acceleration time is a bit slow, like the Lotus Electra R, for example, 9018 horsepower with a weight of 2.69 tons. The 6016 is about 4.23 seconds. Also, like the Zeekr Zazen with over 700 horsepower, the Zeekr Zazen 7 and Sammy Speeder Max with over 600 horsepower, the 6616 is between 4 seconds and 4.5 seconds. This sub with over 700 horsepower, the Rising Autolaw 6, the 6016 is between 4.5 seconds and 5 seconds. If compared to the self-driving Big Brother, the Yangwang 08, the 666 time is 5.73 seconds. which is actually slightly faster than the Z9GT OK. The testing of the Z9GT is now reported to everyone overall. This is indeed not a car with a sporty focus. Compared to pure electric competitors with the same or even lower power data, there is indeed a gap in acceleration ability. However, the chassis materials are truly impeccable also compared to competitors. The Z9GT's chassis can make them lose face. So if you're after various novel experiences from third parties, the GET's stance and a well-made chassis, then choosing this car is fine, recommended. But if you're purely for power, just for drag racing and setting lap times, to be honest, this car is not very suitable. As the old saying goes, every tree has its specialty. Since it has GET in its name, it proves that it is better at doing what a GET should do. Okay, that's all for this episode of Truth on Wheels.